guys, what's up? This is going to be my review for Visions of Archetype and Apocalypse by the band Light Unseen. Now what I can say right off the bat is this is a heavy hitter. This is pretty heavy stuff here. Now this thing really hits you with a lot of rhythmic power chords and things like that that are just kind of relentless, especially as it goes in between the verses and the choruses, between that and the onslaught of music that you hear. This project really reminds me a lot of Taking the Head of Goliath. I think there's a lot of similarities there in the sound that they play. I think there's some similarities in the vocals. However, the vocals in this particular album are more understandable in terms of what they're saying. A lot of the musical things that I hear in it are really right in line with what I would expect with Taking the Head of Goliath. The vocals are grungy and deep, and they have a lot of grit to them, I want to say. A whole lot of death metal type feel in the vocals. Really hard-hitting vocals there. Now as far as the sound is concerned, this is considered, well, it's been described as death grind for the soul. It's got some really hard-hitting sort of vibes to it, both in the lyrical presentation and the guitar playing, or the band as a whole is a pretty heavy hitter. The lyrics are very in your face, and they also have a type of righteousness to them, if you know what I mean. Now there are some memorable parts in some of these riffs that they play. Some of these playing these rhythms, do 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 do. It's a heavy onslaught of throwing at you a bunch of different patterns of notes, and then switching it up, and then going back to it occasionally. There are some hooks in this album, and they're very memorable, I want to say. Now in this project you have made up of two members. One of the members is the bassist and guitarist and vocalist, and the other is a drummer. The main project started as a solo project, but then the drummer was added later on. Now the name of the guy that headed off this project is named Shun, and it's kind of a complicated name, not really sure how to say it. Shun something, and he does most of the work, but then he brought in Trevino as a drummer. Now the song Christus Invictus features Matt Plunkett on Vox in this album, and this is probably the heaviest and hardest hitting song on the album. It's really brutal. I want to say it's really unforgiving. No way you can make out what is actually said unless you have access to the lyrics. Luckily I did get the lyrics for this song, and it was great to see Matt at work here. The name of the last song is called Corpus Christi, and this is a really interesting look at influences from the past, and they go through a list of all these different bands that have influenced the metal community and the Christian metal community and the heavy metal community and all that, and it's an interesting song. Alright, so let's get into the rating categories, shall we? Now I'm gonna base this based on the rhythm. The rhythm is pretty good, I want to say. It's not perfect at this, as it's really hard to get a perfect score on any of these things, but it is fairly good. The rhythm tends to be hard to listen to until you've listened to it a number of times. I want to say when I first listened to this, I was a little like doesn't sound that good, doesn't sound like sort of something's off. But after listening to this album a number of times and going back to it a number of times, I found that the rhythms in this are actually quite cool. So as far as the rating for the rhythms, I'm going to give this a 1.6. Now as far as the notes are concerned, this is an area where I think this band excels pretty well. They do a good job of playing notes in and out and kind of drawing you into their note playing as a groove sort of thing, but it's still really heavy. So on the note playing, as that's compared to the rich and complex aspect of the categories, I'm going to give them a strong 1.8 out of 2. Now as far as the rich and complex is concerned, in light of the composition, this is another category that they get pretty on key, I want to say. This is fairly rich and complex, and it's also fairly listenable as well, as in terms of how rich and complex it is. So overall there, I'm going to say a 1.8 on that as well. Now as far as the composition is concerned, in light of the listenability, this is a category that I think, well, they could have done a little bit better, but I think in light of what this music represents, it's right in line with what it should be. However, I have to dock them or not measure them up as well because it took me so long to really get what was going on in this music. And you might want to say that that's a plus for the album, that it takes time to understand what's going on in there. But for people that are looking for something to get into, this might be a little bit difficult one to get into. So I'm going to rate that as a 1.6 as well. And finally, as far as the listenability is concerned, in light of the rhythm, well, this is both a good and a bad one, I want to say. There's not going to be a whole big doc on it, but I will say that they could have done a lot better in terms of making the rhythms a little bit easier on the ears, in terms of not as they sound bad as sonically, but as they sound easy to understand. So as an overall rating for the listenability, I'm going to give them a 1.5. So overall, that's going to put it at an 8.3. Well guys, that was my review for Visions of Archetype and Apocalypse by Light Unseen. Thanks for watching. Until next time.